How's it going? Today I'm replacing my coolant thermostat. This is my 2003 BMW 325 Ci. It's an E46. So first off, we're going to disconnect this connector and tuck it out to the side so that it will be easy to access all the bolts. And so these E46s, the coolant system tends to be a weak point, and the plastic components will crack after a while. And so it's always good to upgrade all these parts to aluminum to prevent them from breaking. So I already replaced the water pump. That's one thing. The propeller comes plastic, and also the pulleys, so I replaced those with aluminum as well. So we're going to start by draining the coolant or antifreeze already, and then we're going to start removing and loosening the bolts. There's 4, there's 2 up top and 2 on the bottom. I'd already removed that top right one. It's a different size for some reason, but it seems that's how it comes. So I'm going to remove these bolts. And then once I have the bolts loosened, or at least some of them loosened, I'm going to take these clamps off and start working at these coolant hoses. And after years of being on there, they do get really tight. It will be hard to remove them, but you just work them back and forth and gently pry in there with a pry bar or screwdriver. Try not to break the plastic on the coolant hoses, because I will be reusing them in this case. But if you're putting new ones on, don't really have to be gentle at removing them. But I will be using these, so I'm going to be gentle in removing them. Now that I've worked that one loose, I've decided to remove these other bolts and get the whole thermostat off so that I'll have more room to wiggle the hoses off. Once you have all the bolts off, the thermostat housing may be seized a little bit. I just have to tap it or pry it. May come off pretty easy, but you never know. I didn't have that much of an issue getting it off. I had more of an issue getting the hoses off the ends. Now that the last bolt is off, I will grab something to stick in there and pry it to break it loose. It comes right off. And once you got it out, you just have to watch out for that bracket that's above the top right hole. And then remove your clamps. And you will most likely have issues removing these hoses, as I did. It ended up taking me a good 5 to 10 minutes just removing both these hoses. I had to pop the thermostat housing off all the way and then just start wiggling them back and forth. But finally they broke loose and I was able to get it out. Out with the old and in with the new. This new aluminum housing will do much better and most likely last a lot longer. And what you want to do is, before you put the new one on, you gotta make sure you wipe all the old grime and residue off the engine and make sure to get a razor blade and scrape all the small stuff off, just to ensure that the new thermostat housing is properly seated and sealed and you won't have any leaks. And after you get it all cleaned off, make sure you wipe it down good. You don't want none of that junk going into your cooling system. Make sure you wipe off your pulleys and your belt. And then you can get the new housing in there. And now that you got it all cleaned up, you can start to put the new coolant thermostat on. I thought it was easier to try to go ahead and get one hose connected. And as you can see here, I had trouble getting the housing in under the bracket. And so I'm just trying to kind of pry it a little bit to get the housing in there, because removing the top part of the bracket would have been more difficult than replacing the whole housing itself. So I just worked it back and forth and finally I was able to get it in. Once I got it lined up, I tried to get at least one bolt started just to make sure all the holes were lined up. I'm just starting these, not tightening them down all the way yet, just hand tightening them to make sure everything's lined up. Now that everything's mostly hand tight, I'll go ahead and tighten them down the rest of the way. Once I got these tightened all the way with this socket, I'll get the bigger socket and tighten down that top one. Now that everything's tightened down, I'm going to get this bottom hose on. Make sure it's seated right before I get those clips pushed in. Now insert the clips back and put the connector back on. My connector on the new housing was faced a different way, so I had to kind of twist the connector around until it fit good. And then once it was clicked in, make sure to replace your retainer clip. And there you have it. Now I have a new coolant thermostat and thermostat housing. After that, you just add the coolant back in and you're ready to go. Next thing I gotta do is add a new surge tank, and my whole coolant system will be new. And that's it. Thanks guys for watching.